In the shadow of the Great Hall of the People, where the weight of centuries of Chinese history merged with the ambitions of a modern superpower, President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping met on May 14, 2026, for what was billed as a grand Beijing summit designed to stabilize relations between the world's two largest economies. Red carpets stretched across polished marble floors, military bands played stirring anthems, and elaborate cultural performances showcased China's rich heritage alongside its technological prowess. Trump, arriving with a large delegation of senior officials and prominent American CEOs, described the welcome as spectacular and expressed optimism about achieving historic breakthroughs on trade, technology, and global security issues. Yet almost immediately after the formal pleasantries, Xi Jinping delivered a firm, unambiguous warning that cut through the ceremonial atmosphere like a sharp blade. Any mishandling of the Taiwan issue could lead the United States and China into direct collision, clashes, or even outright conflict, placing the entire bilateral relationship in great jeopardy. This moment, captured in the grand halls of Beijing's political heart, underscored the persistent and dangerous fault line that continues to define and threaten U.S. China relations amid rising great power competition. The summit took place at a critical juncture in international affairs. Trump's return to the White House had brought renewed focus on America First policies, including tough stances on trade deficits, intellectual property protection, and strategic competition with China. Beijing, meanwhile, faced its own domestic challenges, including moderating economic growth, demographic pressures, and the need to project strength on core sovereignty issues. Hosting Trump in such lavish style allowed Xi to demonstrate China's global stature while firmly drawing red lines. The two leaders engaged in roughly 2 hours and 15 minutes of closed-door talks, followed by expanded sessions with delegations and a series of bilateral meetings involving key ministers. Chinese state media, including Xinhua and CCTV, provided detailed readouts emphasizing Xi's central message on Taiwan as the most important and sensitive issue in the bilateral relationship. Xi's warning was particularly direct. He stated that if the Taiwan question is handled properly, China-U.S. relations can enjoy overall stability and progress. However, if mishandled, the two countries will collide or even come into conflict, putting the entire relationship in great jeopardy. He reiterated that the United States must exercise the utmost caution and respect the One China principle, warning that Taiwan independence forces and cross-strait peace are as incompatible as fire and water. This language reflected Beijing's long-standing position that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, a core interest tied to the legitimacy of the Communist Party, and the broader narrative of national rejuvenation under Xi's leadership. For Xi, who has tied his legacy to completing the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, any perceived moves toward formal Taiwanese independence or excessive U.S. military backing represent existential threats that cannot be compromised. To fully understand the gravity of this warning, one must examine the deeper historical and strategic context surrounding Taiwan. The island, located just over 100 miles from the Chinese mainland, has a complex history shaped by waves of migration, colonial rule by the Dutch, Spanish, Japanese, and finally the retreat of Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist forces after their defeat in the Chinese Civil War in 1949. Over the subsequent decades, Taiwan evolved from an authoritarian regime into a vibrant, multi-party democracy with a distinct cultural and political identity. Today, its 23 million residents enjoy high living standards, world-class healthcare, and a thriving economy powered especially by its semiconductor industry. Companies like TSMC produce over 60% of the world's advanced chips, making Taiwan a critical node in global supply chains for consumer electronics, automobiles, smartphones, and military systems. Beijing views the island as a breakaway province that must eventually reunify with the mainland, preferably peacefully but without ruling out the use of force if necessary. This stance is enshrined in Chinese law, including the anti-secession law, and forms a cornerstone of Xi's political doctrine. From the American perspective, U.S. policy toward Taiwan has been guided by strategic ambiguity since the normalization of relations with Beijing in the 1970s. The United States officially acknowledges the One China policy but maintains robust unofficial ties with Taipei through the American Institute in Taiwan. Congress has passed multiple pieces of legislation, including enhancements to the Taiwan Relations Act, supporting Taiwan's defense capabilities and encouraging stronger economic and diplomatic engagement. During Trump's first term, arms sales increased significantly, high-level visits occurred, and rhetorical support for Taiwan's democracy grew stronger. In the current 2026 context, reports of a potential new U.S. arms package valued at billions of dollars added friction to the summit. Trump has often praised Taiwan's success story while simultaneously seeking major concessions from China on trade imbalances, fentanyl precursor chemicals, market access for American companies, and technology issues. His transactional style means Taiwan can serve both as a strategic asset and a bargaining chip in broader negotiations. The military dimension of the Taiwan issue adds layers of danger. In recent years, the People's Liberation Army has dramatically intensified operations around Taiwan, conducting near-daily incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, large-scale naval drills, and joint exercises simulating blockades and amphibious assaults. These activities have become normalized, keeping Taiwanese forces on constant alert and raising the risk of accidental escalation. Chinese military modernization has focused on anti-access or area denial capabilities, including advanced ballistic and cruise missiles, stealth fighters, aircraft carriers, and hypersonic weapons designed to deter or complicate U.S. intervention. For its part, Taiwan has responded by investing in asymmetric warfare strategies, mobile missile systems, drones, naval mines, cyber defenses, and extensive civilian resilience programs to make any invasion or blockade as costly as possible. U.S. war games, such as those conducted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, consistently show that a full-scale conflict would be devastating. Thousands of military casualties, potential sinking of major warships, disruption of global trade worth trillions of dollars, and massive economic shocks affecting every corner of the world economy. Economically, the stakes could not be higher. A conflict over Taiwan would likely trigger immediate sanctions, blockades of sea lanes, and the collapse of semiconductor production, sending shockwaves through global markets. Stock exchanges from New York to Tokyo to Frankfurt would plummet. Inflation would spike as supply chains for everything from automobiles to medical devices broke down. Energy prices could surge if shipping routes in the Western Pacific became contested. Both leaders are acutely aware of these costs. Trump's delegation in Beijing included top business leaders eager to expand market access and secure supply chain stability, while Xi's team highlighted opportunities for increased Chinese purchases of American agricultural products, Boeing aircraft, energy exports, and investment deals. Trade talks during the summit reportedly covered reducing tariffs on certain goods, addressing non-market practices, and exploring areas of cooperation in artificial intelligence and climate-related technologies, even as competition in critical minerals, quantum computing, and biotechnology remains fierce. Beyond Taiwan and trade, the summit agenda included pressing global issues such as the situation in Iran and the broader Middle East. Both nations share interests in preventing nuclear proliferation and maintaining stable energy flows through critical choke points like the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's team sought Chinese diplomatic leverage to influence Tehran, while Beijing presented itself as a responsible global player advocating for dialogue over confrontation. Discussions also touched on North Korea's nuclear program, Russia-Ukraine dynamics, and efforts to manage strategic competition without descending into a new Cold War. Despite the serious tone on Taiwan, public statements from both sides included warm language. Trump referred to Xi as a great leader and friend, praising the hospitality and grandeur of the summit. Chinese media showcased images of handshakes, banquets featuring delicacies from across China, and visits to cultural sites like the Forbidden City or Temple of Heaven, aiming to project harmony and mutual respect. Domestically, both leaders faced political calculations. For Xi, firmly reiterating the Taiwan position strengthens his image as a resolute defender of Chinese sovereignty at a time when economic headwinds and youth unemployment require strong nationalist narratives. For Trump, balancing strong support for Taiwan with pragmatic deal-making on economic issues helps appeal to both national security hawks and business constituencies back home. The personal chemistry between the two leaders, marked by mutual respect mixed with competitive instincts, has been noted in past encounters. Trump often speaks of his good relationship with Xi, while Xi views the American president as unpredictable yet capable of bold decisions. Allies and partners across the Indo-Pacific watched the summit closely. Japan, Australia, the Philippines, and South Korea have all deepened security cooperation with the United States in recent years, viewing Chinese assertiveness with concern. The Quad partnership and initiatives like AUKUS reflect a broader regional strategy to maintain a balance of power. Southeast Asian nations, many with deep economic ties to China, navigate careful hedging strategies. A destabilizing conflict over Taiwan would force difficult choices on all these countries and could draw in European powers increasingly engaged in Indo-Pacific security, global institutions from the United Nations to the World Trade Organization would face unprecedented strains in the event of escalation. Taiwanese society itself reacted to the summit news with a mixture of vigilance and determination. President Lai Ching-te's administration has consistently called for Beijing to cease military coercion and respect democratic choices on the island. Many Taiwanese increasingly identify as distinct from the mainland, a trend reinforced by generational change and exposure to democratic values. While economic interdependence with China remains significant, public support for closer U.S. ties and investment in self-defense capabilities has grown. The island continues to bolster its reserves training, cyber defenses, and critical infrastructure protection in preparation for potential crises. Looking ahead, the true test of the summit will lie in implementation and sustained dialogue, establishing or strengthening crisis communication hotlines, military-to-military channels, and track-to-diplomatic efforts could help reduce miscalculation risks. Experts advocate for creative diplomacy that maintains deterrence without provocation. Continued arms sales calibrated to Taiwan's needs, joint training exercises with allies, and economic measures that enhance resilience. Beijing, for its part, continues to promote peaceful reunification as the preferred outcome while keeping military options visible. The path to any long-term resolution remains fraught with challenges, given deep mistrust and differing political systems. In the broader arc of history, this Grand Beijing Summit represents yet another chapter in the complex story of two great powers navigating coexistence. The Thucydides trap tensions between a rising power and an established hegemon looms as a conceptual framework, yet economic interdependence, nuclear deterrence, and shared global challenges offer pathways to manage rivalry. Taiwan stands as more than a piece of territory. It symbolizes competing visions for the future of Asia and the international order, one rooted in democratic self-determination and individual freedoms, the other in centralized national unity and state-led development. Xi's pointed warning served as a powerful reminder that beneath the pomp, pageantry, and handshakes of high-level diplomacy, unresolved core disputes carry the potential to reshape the global landscape profoundly. As the summit continued into subsequent days with further negotiations, cultural exchanges, and working dinners, the world awaited concrete outcomes. Markets reacted with cautious movements, reflecting both optimism for trade deals and underlying geopolitical risks. Diplomats, analysts, and citizens alike recognized that managing the Taiwan issue wisely could define the success or failure not only of this summit but of U.S. China relations for years to come. The delicate balance across the Taiwan Strait, maintained through careful statecraft, remains essential for global peace and prosperity in the 21st century, whether the leaders can translate their personal rapport and mutual interests into durable guardrails against conflict will be the ultimate measure of statesmanship in this era of great power competition. The Grand Beijing Summit, with its blend of lavish hospitality and stark strategic warnings, highlighted both the immense promise of cooperation and the ever-present peril of miscalculation over Taiwan.